So Lee, I think Lee must have saw that show, didn't he? He looked like he was pregnant when he turned to the side to do the side chest. I mean, it was out really, really bad. And I made sure the judges knew too, because I actually patted his belly. So for me, it was 2000.
And then Ronnie turned around his back, and well, he made up for it, because most of these Olympia titles during that era was basically won from the back. And of course, when Lee Haney turned around with his 28-inch waist, when the lats came out, we were all finished. Labrada, I mean, really the air out of our sails disappeared. And then you got a bigger version of Lee with Dorian Yates with better calves. And then you had Ronnie Coleman, who was bigger all over. So the game of bodybuilding changed and evolved, because right before Lee Haney, you had Samir Banu and Chris Dickerson and a Frank Zane, with the exception of Arnold in 1980, that were more smaller, artistic type bodybuilders. Remember, Muhammad McAway, I think, also beat Lee Haney. Back in 1983, Muhammad McAway was only 5'5", couldn't have been 180 pounds. And that was Lee's rookie year coming into the Mr. Olympia. Still under construction, you were taller, you were still growing. How old were you in that first Mr. Olympia in 83? 24, 23 years old. So he still was kind of growing into his body, but he had this little Egyptian at 5'5" that had the illusion that I kind of polarized myself to. I thought, if he could beat Haney and he's, Samir Banu could win the Mr. Olympia, for me it kind of crystallized that maybe I could do it in this sport. And of course, the ultimate prize eluded me, but I felt like I'm in good company with Kevin and with Flex. And the guys that actually won the title, I think we've given them some validation, because again, you were the winningest bodybuilder of all time, which validated the fact that you should have probably won, especially in 2000, when you looked very athletic. You actually streamlined your body. Is that what the black and white picture was, that last picture we saw? Where you kind of like had your arm up? That Purbanal photo shoot. Very athletic and artsy. But that was kind of the era that I came from, the athletic look, and then the game changed with Dorian being bigger. Lee, I had a personal question. So in 91, your last Olympia, I thought you were at your best. You stayed at Rimini in 89. Very few people saw Rimini. You didn't get a whole lot of publicity.
I don't think it was Rimini, no doubt. It was a little soft and Rimini.
Yeah.
I was larger, but not quite as polished.
But in Orlando, I mean, you saw Dorian coming. And of course, it looked like he kind of got a little deflated after you got undressed. But did you not think that was your best in 91? You thought it was
I thought it was my best.
91?
Yeah.
91. Going out the way you should have as a superstar. That was, were you 248 pounds?
I was 254.
Wow. Yes. And then after that, of course, Dorian was 232 in 92. And then Dorian took it up to like 265-ish, and then Ronnie brought it in at 287 pounds. The heaviest Mr. Olympia winner ever. And of course, he changed, because Ronnie was dead last in 92 when Dorian won his first.
Ronnie is a cyclops.
Yeah.
He's not a bodybuilder.
No, he's not human. He's not human, but
he's something else.
What made Ronnie Coleman, I also think, was his demise. The way that he trained as the strongest bodybuilder in the world, basically, was his undoing. Ultimately, he wound up tearing his tricep. He tore his quadricep. He's got some nerve damage in his lat. He's had 2 neck injuries and surgeries, and he's had 1 back surgery. So that style of training does take its toll on you. Of course, Dorian went out with a torn bicep and tricep and a rotator cuff problem. Kevin's one of the few exceptions to come back from what would have been a career-ending injury, which is a pec tear. It was after he tore his pec that he actually became a Hall of Fame bodybuilder. Very few people can do it. Richie Gaspari tore his pec, and that was the end of his career, pretty much. Barry DeMay was 3rd in the 1988 Mr. Olympia, tore his pec, and I don't think he ever made it back to Mr. Olympia after that. That was it for him. So there are some things you have to be cognizant of when you're training with maximum weights. It's still bodybuilding, and although you can't necessarily get around the heavy weights, you still have got to do enough reps with the weight you can handle to not put yourself in harm's way, to have longevity in your careers. I was up there for 14 years. I think you were pro for 10 years? 10. Before you retired at 31, which is still incredible. It's nuts. Kevin, you hurt your back at the time.
Yeah, I hurt my back when Cedar Rose was probably about 300. I think it was just a whole stack. I was trying to do what I could do, But, one thing I want to say, Lee, it is amazing how Lee Haney won his first Mr. Olympia when you were 24 years old. Right, Lee? I mean, that is amazing. And he retired. I mean, he won 8 in a row and walked off. When he retired at 33 years old, 31. Guys are just coming into their peak. So he really retired in your peak. That's amazing.
Y'all ran me off, man.
Honestly, to be fully developed, and when I say peak, I'm talking about, you know, the definition, that's why I said you was in your best shape possible, right? In your last show, 254 pounds. I mean, he was just coming into it, but he, you know, that's just to show that genetics and the gift that God gave him to walk into his destiny, and it's the sport, and it's amazing. That's why we're honoring him tonight, because he is the greatest of all time. Oh, he's a man, right? He's a man. You did it early, you did it fast, and you did it right. Much respect.
You know, guys, it was at the age of 17. Some kind of magazine won't write about this, but I got on my knees and prayed one night before going to bed. And I prayed and said, Lord, if you see fit to make me the best at this sport that I love so much, I'll go before the world and give you the praise and the glory. It was something he heard in the prayer of that 17-year-old that says, okay, son, I think I can trust you with this skill. And so I've used the gift of bodybuilding that God has given me to have an impact and try to, you know, in the lives of people, sharing the health and fitness, and also trying to be what God has called all of us to be, to impact the world in a positive way, to move the world forward, to be fruitful and multiply. Multiply goodness, multiply love, all of those things that keep the world turning. That's why I think he gave the gift, because to be an 8-time Mr. Olympia, hey, that don't even make sense. That's a miracle in itself. That shit don't make sense. Don't even try to figure it out. I can't. It wasn't the tennis shoes on the chicken wings.
They call him Totally Awesome Haney, but they should have called him Minister Haney. He talks about sowing seeds and the fruits of your labor. The one story that Lee said that stands out the clearest for me, which still baffles my mind. He won the Mr. Olympia, I think it was like $50,000 or $60,000 back in the day. And he got some advice. I'm not sure if it was from Arnold or from Joe Weider about what to do with his prize money. He didn't know what to do with his more money than he had at one time or something like that. And then tell him what you did with that as far as sowing the seeds, about that piece of land that you got.
Well, one thing that I've learned from Joe.
And he was only like 24, 25 years old.
You know, when I first moved to California, Joe offered me an opportunity to come out and train. He said, Lee, would you love to come out and train? I said, man, I would love to. I mean, Joe Weider invited you to California. Incredible. Then Joe asked me, he said, Lee, is there a girl that you're crazy about? I said, yes. Matter of fact, there is. Matter of fact, and I said, yes. He said, well, I think it's great for a young man to have stability in his life, because Joe was all about family. He said, if you bring her out with you, I'll make sure she have a job at the Weider Center. And so the two of you would have enough income to keep you going along with the contract that I put you on. And so anyway, that young lady that took off to go with me, I made sure one thing, I talked to her mom and dad. I said, Miss Draper, I would like to take Shirley with me to California. I said, now, I respect her enough that I will not live with her without being married to her. So I want to marry Shirley before we leave to go to California. I have an opportunity here, and I want your permission to do so. And of course, her mother gave me the position, gave me permission along with her dad. And we got married, took off to California. And so fast forward, here I am with Joe living in California, and everything is going great. And Joe would emphasize to me, you know, we would meet during his office. He would always work with me on the posing and so forth. He said, Lee, make sure you be careful with your money, be smart, make good investments. You really want to look into real estate, that's a great place to be. So guess what? When I won my first Olympia, I started investing in real estate. Fast forward some years later, I'm living in Atlanta now, not in California. And so me and Shirley attends an auction to help out a church who was bidding for property. They said if the auction went over $100,000, they couldn't go higher than that. We had never met them before, but we were there to help, because one of our other friends told us about it. So I tapped the pastor on the shoulder. I said, let's go to 105. Because he went to 100, they didn't have anything more than that. I said, 105, I got you covered. He looked at me and said, I said, don't worry about it, I got you covered. So anyway, they got what they were there to get that nice sanctuary and 14 acres of land. Then they said, oh, by the way, we're auctioning off some other properties. I said, well, I wasn't here for that. But, okay, I'm going to jump right in this. I looked to heaven and I said, well, Lord, it's in your hand. Because what me and Shirley had talked about doing and was in the process of looking for a place to set up and establish a retreat center for young people, so that kids can come out and see the beauty of God's creation, churches can come out, schools can come out, and they can get to see horses, goats, rabbits, potbelly pigs. That's where I grew up, from a farm. So anyway, we were there at the auction, and the auction began, and one guy said 20, another guy said 30, I said 40, another guy said 50, another guy said 55, I said 56, and the auctioneer said 56, I said, that's right, 56. Another guy said 60, I said 65, going once, twice, sold for $65,000, I got 40.